The bright lights of the laboratory hurt Jack Collins' eyes as he stared at the alien weapon on the table. For 3 weeks now, he had been studying weapons from the Tarsian Empire. The weapon looked strange, sleek and blue, with odd curves, but its purpose was clear. It was made to kill. Jack rubbed his tired eyes and made another note in his report. As the lead xenobiologist on the USS Vanguard, he had seen many alien technologies, but something about these weapons bothered him. Something he couldn't quite name. Lieutenant Collins still at it? Captain Susan Martinez walked into the lab, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. Jack stood up straight. Yes, Captain. Something doesn't add up. Susan raised an eyebrow and moved closer to look at the weapon. Explain. Jack pointed to the weapon's inner workings now exposed on his workbench. The Tarsian blaster is designed for instant death. The energy pulse stops all brain activity in 0.3 seconds. No pain, just off. He pulled up images of other alien weapons on his screen. And it's not just the Tarsians, the Krell disintegrators, Vorax neural disruptors, even the Saurian plasma rifles. They all kill quickly and cleanly. That's not unusual, Collins. Most weapons are designed to kill, Susan said. But that's just it. Jack pulled up images of human weapons next to the alien ones. Look at our weapons. Tear gas causes burning in the eyes and lungs. Rubber bullets cause extreme pain but rarely kill. Even our lethal weapons often cause pain before death. Susan frowned, beginning to see his point. You're saying other species don't design weapons to cause pain, just death? Exactly. Jack sat down, suddenly feeling the weight of his discovery. I've looked at weapons from 17 different species now. Humans are the only ones who make weapons specifically to cause pain, rather than just to kill. Susan was quiet for a long moment. This can't be right. Check again. There has to be another species that does this. Jack shook his head. I've double-checked everything. Made sure the translators got the weapon specs correct. Confirmed with the alien diplomats themselves, though I was careful not to explain why I was asking. And nobody else designs weapons for pain, for torture, for control through suffering? Susan's voice had dropped to almost a whisper. No one we've found. They make weapons to kill enemies. If they want someone alive, they use restraints or sedatives. The concept of causing pain as a weapon strategy seems uniquely human. The silence in the lab felt heavy. Jack pulled up more files on his screen. I even checked historical records. Other species have torture in their past, but it was always personal, one-on-one. They never industrialized it, never made it into a technology, a strategy of war. Susan walked to the window, looking out at the stars. The USS Vanguard was currently orbiting a Tarsian colony world as part of a diplomatic mission. Out there were beings who thought differently than humans in ways they were only beginning to understand. This has to stay quiet, she finally said, at least until we understand the implications better. Who else knows about this? No one. Just me and now you. Susan nodded. Keep it that way, continue your research, but quietly. If you're right, this could change how we think about ourselves and our place in the galaxy. Jack nodded, but his mind was already racing ahead. Why were humans different in this way? What did it say about them as a species? The next morning, Jack went to see Dr. Nancy Warren, the ship's anthropologist. Her office was filled with artifacts from a dozen worlds, a chaotic mess that somehow made sense to her. Jack, what brings you to my little museum? Nancy smiled warmly. I need your expertise, but this stays between us. Captain's orders. Nancy's smile faded, replaced by professional curiosity. Of course. What's up? Jack explained his discovery, showing her the data on his tablet. Nancy listened without interrupting, her expression growing more serious with each passing minute. This is significant, she said finally. If you're right, it tells us something fundamental about human psychology compared to other species. That's why I'm here. I need to know why. Why would humans be the only species to weaponize pain? Nancy walked to her bookshelf, pulling down old-fashioned paper books alongside digital tablets. Let's think about this from an evolutionary perspective. Pain exists as a warning system. Don't touch fire. Don't eat that plant again. Run from that predator. All species feel pain, Jack said. Yes, but perhaps not in the same way we do. Nancy sat down and began making notes. Human pain is tied to memory, to emotion, to social learning in complex ways. We don't just feel pain, we anticipate it, remember it, fear it, and use it to control behavior, both our own and others. Jack leaned forward. You think other species might experience pain differently? It's possible. Their nervous systems evolved under different conditions than ours. Nancy was getting excited now, the way she always did when facing a new mystery. We need to do a comparative study of pain responses across species, not just the physical reactions but the psychological ones. I'll need access to the classified xenobiology files, Jack said, and I'll need to interview alien representatives without revealing what we're really studying. Nancy tapped her stylus against her tablet. This won't be easy. The captain wants this kept quiet. Nancy nodded seriously. I understand why. If we're the only species that weaponizes pain, how will other species see us once they realize it? Will they see us as uniquely cruel? Or might they recognize that it also means we have a unique capacity for empathy, the ability to imagine another's suffering? Jack hadn't thought of that angle. You think those things are connected? They must be. To deliberately cause pain, you must be able to imagine pain. To imagine pain in another being requires a certain kind of empathy, even if it's being used cruelly. Jack's communicator beeped, a message from Captain Martinez. Tarsian delegation requesting tour of ship tomorrow. Weapon systems included in tour. Meet me in my ready room in 1 hour. Jack looked up at Nancy, his face pale. The Tarsians want to see our weapons. Nancy's eyes widened. If they realize what makes our weapons different, it could become a diplomatic incident. Jack stood up quickly. I need to go brief the captain. As Jack hurried through the ship's corridors, his mind raced with questions. What made humans different? Was it something to be ashamed of? Or was it connected to something deeper? Their ability to imagine others' feelings. And what would happen if the galactic community discovered this strange, dark truth about humanity? He didn't know the answers, but he knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow's tour with the Tarsian delegation was about to get very complicated. Captain Susan Martinez's ready room was small but neat. Jack stood at attention as she paced back and forth. I've been thinking about your discovery all night, she said. We need to approach this carefully. Jack nodded. What should we do about the Tarsian tour tomorrow? I've spoken with Lieutenant Greg Parker. He'll handle the weapons demonstration. I want you to be there too, but just observe. Don't mention your research. Susan stopped pacing. We need more data before we decide how to proceed. Yes, Captain. Dr. Warren and I are planning a deeper investigation. Susan sat down at her desk. You brought the anthropologist into this? I needed her expertise. She thinks this might be connected to how humans process pain differently than other species. Susan was quiet for a moment. Very well. You two can continue your research, but keep it quiet. Report directly to me. No one else needs to know yet. Jack left the captain's office with a new sense of purpose. This wasn't just about weapons anymore. It was about understanding something fundamental about humans and their place among the stars. The next morning, Jack met Nancy in the science lab. She had been up all night, her eyes red but excited. I accessed the classified xenobiology files, she said, keeping her voice low even though they were alone. Look at this. On her screen were brain scans of different species reacting to pain stimuli. Jack wasn't a doctor, but even he could see the differences. The human brain lights up in many areas when experiencing pain, Nancy explained. But look at the Tarsian brain. She switched images. Pain activates just one small region. It's a simple signal, danger, without all the emotional processing we have. What about the others? Jack asked. Nancy showed him more scans. similar patterns, across all non-human species. They feel pain as a warning signal, but it doesn't connect to memory and emotion the same way it does for us. Jack sat down, taking in this information. So when we make weapons that cause pain without killing, it's because we understand how pain affects behavior. Exactly. We know pain can control, can change decisions, can break will. Other species don't seem to process it that way. Nancy brought up more data. For them, something either kills you or it doesn't. Pain is just a temporary signal to avoid damage. Their discussion was interrupted by Jack's communicator. Collins, the Tarsian delegation is boarding in 30 minutes. Meet us at Docking Bay 3. It was Captain Martinez. I'll be right there, Jack replied. He looked at Nancy. We'll continue this later. The Tarsian delegation consisted of 5 tall, blue-skinned beings. Their ambassador Kreltak led the group, his 4 eyes blinking independently as he greeted. Captain Martinez, we are honored to tour your vessel, the ambassador said through his translator. We are particularly interested in your defensive systems. Of course, Susan smiled diplomatically. Lieutenant Parker will show you our standard armaments. Jack followed quietly as the group made its way to the weapons demonstration room. Lieutenant Greg Parker was waiting for them, standing proudly next to a display of human weapons. These are our standard-issue sidearms, Greg explained, picking up a sleek pistol. They fire concentrated energy bursts that disrupt neural functions. The Tarsians nodded, seemingly familiar with the concept. And these, Greg continued, gesturing to another table, are our non-lethal crowd control weapons. One of the Tarsian scientists stepped forward, curious. Non-lethal, you mean for capture? Yes, for situations where lethal force isn't necessary. Greg picked up what looked like a small gun. This is a sonic disruptor. It causes intense pain in the ear canals and inner ear, disorienting the target without permanent damage. The room went very quiet. Ambassador Kreltak's 4 eyes all focused on the device. You designed this to cause pain? He asked slowly. Greg didn't seem to notice the change in atmosphere. Yes, it's quite effective. The pain is intense but temporary. We also have chemical irritants that cause burning sensations on skin and in the lungs. The Tarsians were all looking at each other now. Jack felt a knot forming in his stomach. This was exactly what he had feared. You deliberately created weapons to inflict suffering? Ambassador Kreltak's translator couldn't quite capture the emotion in his voice, but his body language showed clear distress. Greg finally sensed something was wrong. He looked to Captain Martinez. Yes? They're considered more humane than lethal options. Humane? The ambassador's translator struggled with the word. You think causing extended suffering is kind? Captain Martinez stepped forward. Ambassador, perhaps we should move on to, I must understand this. The ambassador held up a hand. Your species intentionally designs technology to cause pain rather than quick death, and you consider this merciful? The room was tense. Jack caught Susan's eye and she gave him a slight nod. Ambassador, Jack said carefully, there may be a cultural difference at work here. Humans have a complex relationship with pain. For us, pain has many layers of meaning beyond just physical warning. Explain, the ambassador demanded. Jack chose his words carefully. For humans, the fear of pain can be a powerful deterrent. Our non-lethal weapons are designed to control dangerous situations without killing. We see this as more ethical than using lethal force. The ambassador's eyes blinked in an uneven pattern. This is disturbing. In all our history, no Tarsian would design a weapon specifically to cause suffering. If we must fight, we kill quickly. If we must capture, we restrain or sedate. Pain serves no purpose in conflict. Captain Martinez stepped. Ambassador, I understand this is surprising. Perhaps we should continue this discussion more privately. The ambassador seemed to compose himself. Yes, that would be wise. This revelation requires careful consideration. As the tour moved on, Jack stayed behind. Greg approached him, confused. What just happened? He asked. Jack sighed. You just revealed something about humans that other species find deeply troubling. The concept of weaponized pain appears to be uniquely human. Greg's eyes widened. You're kidding. I wish I was, Jack said quietly. And now we have a diplomatic situation on our hands. Later that evening, Captain Martinez called Jack and Nancy to her office. Her face was grim. Ambassador Kreltak has sent a message to his government, she said. He's requesting a formal review of the Tarsian-Human alliance based on what he calls fundamental ethical incompatibilities. It's my fault, Jack said. I should have warned Lieutenant Parker. No, Susan shook her head. This was going to come out eventually. We just need to handle it properly now. She looked at both of them. Your research is now a priority. We need to understand exactly why humans are different in this way and what it means. The Admiral will be arriving next week to help manage this situation. As Jack and Nancy left the captain's office, they knew their small discovery had just become much bigger than they had imagined. The uniquely human relationship with pain might now shape the future of humanity's place among the stars. Admiral William Grant arrived on the USS Vanguard 5 days later. He was a tall man with gray hair and a serious face. Jack, Nancy, and Captain Martinez met him in the main conference room. This situation has the potential to become a major diplomatic incident, Admiral Grant said after they had briefed him. The Tarsians have already shared their concerns with 3 other species in the Galactic Concord. Susan leaned forward. How bad is it, Admiral? Bad enough that I've been sent directly from Earth Command. The Admiral turned to Jack. Lieutenant Collins, your discovery is now classified at the highest level. You will continue your research, but all findings come directly to me. Yes, sir, Jack said. Admiral Grant looked at Nancy. Dr. Warren, what progress have you made on understanding why humans differ in this way? Nancy opened her data tablet. We've been comparing neural structures across species. It appears that humans process pain differently than any other known species. For us, pain connects deeply to memory, emotion, and social learning. For other species, pain is primarily a physical warning system without all the psychological layers. In simple terms, what does this mean? The Admiral asked. It means that for humans, the threat of pain can change behavior in complex ways. We can imagine future pain, remember past pain, and fear pain in ways that affect our decisions. Nancy paused. Other species seem to treat pain as just a temporary signal. It doesn't have the same psychological impact. Admiral Grant was quiet for a moment. So our weapons designed to control through pain would be mostly ineffective against other species? Probably. Nancy nodded. They might cause temporary discomfort, but not the psychological impact we expect. That's likely why other species never developed similar weapons. They simply wouldn't work well for their psychology. The Admiral rubbed his chin. This doesn't make us look good to the galactic community. The Tarsians are portraying us as uniquely cruel. But that's not the whole story, Jack said quickly. If we process pain differently, it might also explain other things about humans, like our capacity for empathy, our art that explores suffering, even our medical advances in pain management. Before the Admiral could respond, the ship's communication system beeped. Admiral Grant, a message from the Tarsian embassy, a voice announced. Put it through, the Admiral said. Ambassador Kreltak's face appeared on the large screen. Admiral Grant, I trust you have been briefed on the situation. I have, Ambassador. I believe there's been a misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding, the Ambassador interrupted. We have reviewed your weapon systems in detail. Your species has devoted significant resources to developing technologies that deliberately induce suffering. This is deeply disturbing to us and to several other members of the Galactic Concord. Ambassador, these weapons are designed to minimize fatalities. That explanation makes no sense to us. Death is quick. Pain is suffering. Your preference for causing suffering rather than quick death appears barbaric. The room was tense. Jack noticed Nancy typing quickly on her tablet. She slid it toward him with a note. Their language doesn't even have different words for pain and suffering. Same concept to them. Admiral Grant maintained his calm. Ambassador, I propose a joint scientific commission to study these differences in how our species perceive pain. This may be a matter of biological and cultural difference rather than ethics. The ambassador's four eyes blinked in sequence. We will consider your proposal, but in the meantime, we have requested an emergency session of the Concord Council. This will be discussed in 7 days. The screen went blank. That could have gone better, Susan said quietly. The Admiral turned to Jack and Nancy. You have 7 days to find something that will help us explain this to the Council in a way that doesn't make humanity look like monsters. Yes, sir, they said together. Over the next few days, Jack and Nancy worked almost non-stop. They gathered data from all available sources, comparing human and alien brain structures, nervous systems, evolutionary paths, and cultural responses to pain. On the 4th day, Jack found Nancy in the lab looking excited. I think I found something important, she said. What is it? Jack asked, moving to her side. Look at these ancient records. Nancy pulled up images of primitive weapons from various species. All species started with simple weapons, spears, blades, basic projectiles. But look at their evolution. Jack studied the images. The alien weapons all evolved toward quick, clean kills. Exactly. Now look at human weapons. Nancy showed another set of images. We developed things like barbed arrows that cause bleeding, poison darts that cause slow death, serrated blades that create jagged wounds. So even from ancient times, we designed weapons differently, Jack said. Yes. But here's the key insight. Nancy switched to a new set of data. I've been comparing social structures. Species with simpler pain processing tend to have more straightforward conflict resolution. Fighting ends in submission or death, with little middle ground. And humans? We created complex social hierarchies, justice systems, and conflict management, all based partly on graduated applications of punishment and pain. Nancy paused. Our complex relationship with pain might have enabled our complex societies. Jack sat down, thinking about the implications. You're saying our ability to process pain in complex ways might be linked to our social evolution? It's a theory, but the data supports it. Our capacity to anticipate, remember, and emotionally process pain might be connected to our ability to form complex social bonds and create sophisticated societies. Jack was about to respond when his communicator beeped. Admiral Grant's voice came through. Collins, Warren, report to the conference room immediately. The Tarsian ambassador has requested an unscheduled meeting. When they arrived, Ambassador Kreltak was already there with 2 Tarsian scientists. The Admiral nodded for Jack and Nancy to sit down. Ambassador, may I ask what prompted this meeting? Admiral Grant asked. Our scientists have been conducting their own analysis, Ambassador, Kreltak said. They have questions about human neural structures. One of the Tarsian scientists spoke up. We have reviewed data on human brain activity. Your pain processing centers are unusually complex. Why is this? Nancy looked at the Admiral, who nodded, for her to answer. We believe it's connected to our social evolution. Humans developed complex social structures that required us to understand and anticipate others' experiences, including pain. So your weapons that cause pain, the scientist began. They work on humans because we process pain in complicated ways, Nancy explained. They probably wouldn't be as effective against Tarsians or other species. The Tarsians conferred among themselves in their own language. Finally, Ambassador Kreltak spoke. This is unexpected. You are saying that your weapons reflect your unique neural structure, not a desire to cause suffering? Yes, Admiral Grant said firmly. We don't design these weapons out of cruelty, but because of how our own brains work. The ambassador was quiet for a moment. This changes the nature of our concerns. Perhaps we have been too quick to judge based on our own perceptions. As the Tarsians left, Jack felt a small sense of hope. Perhaps this discovery wouldn't lead to diplomatic disaster after all. But he also knew that the Concord Council meeting was still coming, and they would need more than theories to convince 27 different species that humans weren't monsters. The real test was yet to come. The day before the Concord Council meeting, Dr. Olivia Baker arrived on the USS Vanguard. She was the leading human expert on alien neurobiology, and Admiral Grant had called her in to help with their presentation. "We need concrete evidence, not just theories," Olivia said as she met with Jack, Nancy, and the Admiral in the science lab. Her voice was firm but kind. "The Council won't be convinced by speculation. We've gathered all the data we could," Jack said, showing her their findings. "But we're still missing something important." Olivia studied their research for several hours. Finally, she looked up with bright eyes. "I think I see what you've missed," she said. "You've been focusing on how humans process pain, but not on why we evolved this way." Nancy leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "Look at the evolutionary paths of different species." Olivia pulled up new data on the screen. Most spacefaring species evolved from apex predators or highly specialized defensive organisms. Jack studied the information. "And humans? We were persistence hunters, not the strongest or fastest, but we could track prey for days through endurance and intelligence." Olivia brought up more images. "And importantly, we lived in complex social groups where our survival depended on cooperation." Admiral Grant looked confused. "What does this have to do with pain weapons?" "Everything," Olivia said. Species that evolved as apex predators developed direct killing methods because in their evolutionary history, conflicts ended in quick death. But humans evolved needing to understand each other's intentions and feelings to cooperate effectively. "So our complex pain processing," Nancy began, seeing where this was going. "It's not a flaw, it's a feature," Olivia confirmed. "Our ability to understand, anticipate, and remember pain in complex ways helped us form sophisticated social bonds. It's the same neural machinery that lets us feel empathy, create art that moves others emotionally, and build complex societies based on shared understanding." Jack sat back, his mind racing. "So our weapons reflect our unique evolutionary path, not some inherent cruelty." "Exactly," Olivia nodded. "In fact, I'd argue that the same neural adaptations that let us create pain-based weapons also give us our greatest strengths as a species, our empathy, our art, our social cohesion." Admiral Grant looked more hopeful. "Can you present this to the Council tomorrow?" "Yes," Olivia said. "But I'll need help preparing the evidence, and we should have a demonstration ready." They worked through the night, preparing slides, gathering evidence, and creating simulations to show the Council. By morning, they were exhausted but ready. The Concord Council meeting was held on a large neutral space station orbiting the Tarsian homeworld. Representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations gathered in the Grand Chamber. Admiral Grant, Jack, Nancy, and Olivia sat at the human delegation's table. Ambassador Kreltak opened the proceedings. "We have called this emergency session to address a disturbing discovery about human weapons technology. Evidence suggests that humans are the only known species to deliberately design weapons for inflicting pain rather than quick death." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Jack could see the representatives from other species looking at the human delegation with what seemed like concern or disgust. "This raises serious questions about the compatibility of human ethics with galactic standards," the ambassador continued. "We must consider whether—" "If I may interrupt," Admiral Grant stood up. "We request the opportunity to present new scientific findings relevant to this discussion." The council leader, a tall, slender being from the Zeth species, nodded. "The humans may present their findings." Olivia stepped forward to the central platform. Images appeared on the large screens around the chamber. "Honorable representatives," she began, "what appears to be a difference in ethics is actually a difference in biology. Human neural systems process pain differently than any other known species." She showed brain scans comparing how different species responded to pain stimuli. Even the non-scientists in the room could see the stark differences. Humans evolved as social hunters who depended on cooperation for survival. Olivia continued. We developed complex neural systems that connect pain to memory, emotion, and social learning. This allowed us to build sophisticated societies based on understanding each other's experiences. She brought up more images, showing how human societies developed compared to other species. Our weapons reflect our unique neural architecture, not a desire to cause suffering. What works as a deterrent for humans simply wouldn't work the same way for your species. A representative from the Vorax species stood up. Are you claiming that your pain weapons are actually humane for your kind? For humans, the threat of pain can change behavior without causing death, Olivia explained. It's not about cruelty, but about our different neurological wiring. This is unexpected, the Vorax representative said. Ambassador Kreltak spoke again. You're saying that the same neural adaptations that led you to create pain weapons also give you other abilities? Yes, Olivia nodded. The same systems allow us to imagine others' experiences deeply, both positive and negative. This is the foundation of human empathy, art, literature, and social bonds. Jack watched the council members' reactions. Some seemed thoughtful, others confused. It was impossible to know if they were convincing them. Olivia continued. To demonstrate, I would like to show you a human artistic performance, something we call music. With permission granted, Olivia played a recording of a human orchestra performing a powerful, emotional piece. As the music filled the chamber, she showed brain scans of humans listening to the music. Notice how similar these activation patterns are to our pain processing centers, she said. The same neural machinery that makes us vulnerable to pain also allows us to create and experience this. When the music ended, the chamber was quiet. Finally, the Zeth Council leader spoke. This is fascinating. You are suggesting that what we perceived as cruelty might be a side effect of neural adaptations that also give you unique capabilities. Yes, Admiral Grant said, standing again. We don't ask you to approve of our weapons. We only ask that you understand they reflect our biology, not a desire to cause suffering. The council went into a closed session for deliberation. Jack, Nancy, Olivia, and the Admiral waited anxiously outside the chamber. Do you think they believed us? Jack asked. It's hard to say, Olivia replied. Their brains are so different from ours. They may never fully understand how we experience pain. After 2 hours, they were called back into the chamber. The council leader stood at the center. After careful consideration, the council has decided not to condemn humanity for its weapons technology, the Zeth announced. We accept that. These differences stem from biological variation rather than moral failing. Jack felt a wave of relief, but the council leader wasn't finished. However, we propose the creation of a new interspecies neural diversity commission to study these differences further and establish protocols for cross-species interactions that respect our different neural architectures. Admiral Grant stepped forward. Humanity would be honored to participate in such a commission. As they left the chamber, Jack turned to Olivia and Nancy. We did it. We didn't just avoid a diplomatic disaster. We might have started something important. Yes, Olivia smiled tiredly. Understanding how different species experience the world, that could be the foundation for true interspecies empathy. Jack looked out the viewport at the stars. What had begun as a disturbing discovery about weapons had led to something much more profound. The first steps toward truly understanding the different minds that shared their galaxy. 6 months after the Concord Council meeting, representatives from all 27 spacefaring civilizations gathered on Earth. It was the first time so many alien species had visited the human homeworld together. The occasion was the opening of the Interspecies Neural Diversity Center in Geneva. Jack stood beside Nancy and Olivia as they watched the ships land. So much had changed since his simple discovery aboard the USS Vanguard. Nervous? Nancy asked him. A little, Jack admitted. I'm still getting used to being famous. His discovery had turned into something much bigger than anyone expected. What began as a potential diplomatic crisis had evolved into a groundbreaking field of study. The differences in how species experienced pain had led scientists to explore all the ways that different minds experience the universe. The opening ceremony was held in a large glass building designed to accommodate beings of all shapes and sizes. Admiral Grant, now promoted to head of interspecies relations, gave the opening speech. 6 months ago, we faced a crisis. Today, we celebrate an opportunity, the Admiral said. The Neural Diversity Center will help us understand not just how we differ, but how those differences can make us stronger together. Jack watched as Ambassador Kreltak took the stage next. The Tarsians' attitude had completely changed from their first tense meeting. When we discovered that humans designed weapons to cause pain, we feared we had encountered a cruel species, the ambassador said through his translator. Instead, we discovered a species whose neural structure gives them unique abilities we are only beginning to understand. After the speeches, Jack walked through the exhibition halls. Each display showed a different aspect of neural diversity across species. One section compared how different species processed sensory information. Another explored different forms of communication. But the most popular exhibit was the one about pain and empathy. Dr. Olivia Baker stood beside a large display showing brain scans. A small crowd of humans and aliens gathered around her. The human ability to process pain in complex ways evolved alongside our capacity for empathy, she explained. The same neural structures that make us vulnerable to pain also allow us to understand others' experiences deeply. A Vorax scientist raised a clawed hand. But this seems inefficient. Pain that lingers in memory and emotion. Wouldn't that be a disadvantage? For a solitary predator, yes, Olivia nodded. But for social beings who depend on cooperation, it became an advantage. Understanding how actions affect others helped us build complex societies. Jack noticed a Tarsian child watching a video of human children playing. The alien child seemed fascinated by how the humans responded to a small child falling and crying, then being comforted by others. They feel each other's pain, a Tarsian adult explained to the child. That is how their species connects. Later that day, Jack was surprised when Captain Susan Martinez found him. She had been promoted too and now commanded her own ship. Quite a change from our worried conversations on the Vanguard, she said, smiling. I never expected it to lead to this, Jack admitted. I was just studying weapons. The best discoveries often come from unexpected places, Susan said. Have you seen the new treaty provisions? Jack nodded. The diplomatic outcome of their discovery had been surprising. Rather than banning human pain-based weapons, the Concord had created new protocols for cross-species conflict. Human weapons would not be used against species with different neural structures, just as certain alien technologies wouldn't be used against humans. It's not about judging each other's methods anymore, Jack said. It's about understanding our differences. As evening approached, Jack joined a special demonstration in the center's main hall. Representatives from each species would share something unique about their neural experience. The Krell demonstrated how they could see ultraviolet light. The Vorax showed how they could sense magnetic fields. When it was humanity's turn, Olivia had arranged something special. A human orchestra and choir performed a piece specifically composed for the occasion. The music swelled with emotion, carrying themes of discovery, fear, understanding, and hope. Jack watched the alien representatives. Some seemed deeply moved, even though their brains processed the sounds differently. The music wasn't just heard. Somehow, its emotional content was felt across species barriers. After the performance, Ambassador Kreltak approached Jack. I believe I understand now, the Tarsian said. Your weapons and your art come from the same place where your ability to imagine others' experiences. Yes, Jack nodded. The same neural structures that make us vulnerable to pain also give us our greatest strengths. In my culture, we have always valued quick, clean death as the most merciful approach, the ambassador said. But I am beginning to see that mercy can take different forms across neural architectures. As the gathering continued into the night, Jack found a quiet spot on a balcony overlooking the city lights. Nancy joined him there. Thinking about how far we've come? She asked. Actually, I was thinking about how far we still have to go, Jack replied. We've only scratched the surface of understanding how different minds experience the universe. Nancy nodded. The Admiral told me they're planning exploration missions specifically to study neural diversity across the galaxy. They want you to lead the first one. Jack looked surprised. Me? I'm just a weapons analyst who stumbled onto something important. Sometimes that's how the best discoveries happen, Nancy smiled. The USS Neural Explorer launches in 3 months. The crew will include scientists from all 27 species. Jack looked up at the stars, thinking about the journey ahead. What had begun as a disturbing discovery about weapons had opened a door to something much more profound, a new understanding of consciousness itself across different evolutionary paths. The next morning, as the sun rose over the neural diversity center, Jack made his decision. He would accept the mission. The classified records about humans being the only species to design weapons for pain would remain in the archives, but they had led to something much more important, the first true bridge between fundamentally different minds in the galaxy. As he watched representatives from dozens of worlds sharing ideas and experiences, Jack realized that humanity's unique relationship with pain had revealed not a flaw, but perhaps their greatest gift to the galactic community, the ability to imagine, understand, and connect with minds very different from their own. End of classified records.